3, 2, 1.
Fuck, I wasn't ready. Sorry. I was holding my tea. Jesus.
Tea before everything with me.
Got to keep up. You counted very fast.
3, 2, 1.
That felt good.
Hello and welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are talking about on Monday, the 14th of November. I am Holly Wainwright.
I'm Mia Friedman.
And I'm Emma Gillespie, filling in for Jessie Stevens, who is writing her book and things this week.
Voting is still open for the Australian Podcast Awards Listener's Choice category. It's the only one you can vote for. So if you're listening to this, hopefully you like us. You might want to vote via the link in the show notes. If you don't like us, don't worry about it.
Please vote for us. I really want to win this time. Last year, my shoe broke at the event, and it was honestly a relief that we didn't win because I would have had to hobble up shoeless. But this year, I'm going to be wearing good shoes.
Yeah, awards are only good
shoes.
if you win them. Otherwise, they're terrible.
It's hilarious that we've now stated so clearly how much we want to win. This is always my fear when you campaign hard for something. Whereas if we don't campaign hard, you're like, I didn't care. But now everyone will know how much we cared. It's vulnerability. Anyway.
All I want to talk about is The Crown. I spent the weekend watching 10 hours of it.
Wow.
Did you? Did you watch it all?
I watched it all. I started maybe on Thursday. I think I watched a couple of episodes at a time. And then yesterday, I'd watched about 6 hours of it. I got really, really into it.
So this season is about the unraveling of Charles and Diana?
Yes, this season is about the 90s and particularly 1 year, the Annus Horribilis, I think it's called, of the Queen, where 3 of her 4 children got divorced and also one of her palaces burnt down, Windsor Castle. She had a really shit time of it. And so it's at the centre of all of this is Charles and Diana. And look, I love The Crown. It is a glorious piece of television. I enjoyed every moment of it, almost. But the casting of Dominic West as Prince Charles, I think, has really stuffed the season.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
No,
because he's too
Tell
hot.
us why.
Too long the short version is he's too hot. Not just he's too hot, but he's also he's just the wrong kind of person. So what happens if you don't watch The Crown is that because it's over such a long period of time, it's over the Queen's sort of whole reign, which is 70 odd years. Every 2 seasons, they swap out the entire cast. And this is the 3rd and final time that the cast has been changed. And the new Queen is an actress you'll recognise called Imelda Staunton. The new Diana is an Australian actress who is extraordinary called Elizabeth Debicki. And the new Charles is Dominic West, who I know his name. I know there's a bit of scandal around him. He sort of looks familiar to me, but I don't know what else he's been in.
I think he was in The Wire. And
I've got to tell you so many things about him. So many things. So yeah, you might, depending on your era, you might know him as McNulty in The Wire, which was the most critically acclaimed show, of the noughties, and he was amazing and he was a heartthrob and all the rest of it. You might know him from The Affair, which is a very popular show in the last few years. Or you might know him from his apparent affair, because he is known to be a bit of a dick, right? A bit of a, like a handsy, bit of an old school kind of guy, right? He is also a very posh dick. So he went to Eton, which is the most exclusive school in the UK. It's where Harry and William went. In 2013, he and Prince Harry hiked together to the South Pole for a charity cause for the Invictus Games. His wife, Catherine, is actually a viscountess, which means she's an aristocrat, a very posh person, a lesser royal herself. She has an ancestral castle in Ireland that she and Dominic run as a posh hotel. And she is also, Catherine, a very fancy landscape expert. And King Charles, when he was Prince Charles, has had her do a few of his properties over the years. So they are friends.
Oh, wow. I had no idea about this.
What do you mean, Viscountess? It sounds like you're describing a Bridgerton season, Holly.
Exactly, right?
Who did he have the affair with?
So he didn't necessarily have an affair, but they were all over they were all over everything a couple of years ago because, and I wrote a story about this actually, we'll link to it in the show notes. There were some very possibly incriminating pat pictures of him on a set with the actress Lily James. And they were filming in Italy and it appeared like they were canoodling. He was leaning over to her, whispering in her ear, pushing her hair out of her face. They were on a scooter together. They looked like they were very intimate pics. They were pap shots. And immediately everybody went into overdrive and said clearly they were having an affair. He immediately flew home to Catherine, his wife. They've been married for more than 20 years and they've known each other since they were at uni. And they came out together and posed as like a picture of unity in that way that like politicians do. And they put a note on the front of their fancy house that said, "Thank you for your concern. We're very much together. Mind your own business," right?
Ah, that's
I
quite
remember
classy.
that. Yep.
At the time, I wrote a story saying that it was interesting how we'd all chosen to view this, because I suspected that a little bit down the line, we might find that Dominic West is just exactly that kind of guy who leans into a young actress and pushes her hair. You know what I mean? Like, a bit inappropriate, handsy. It doesn't necessarily mean they're having an affair. And indeed, Lily James, the only time she's addressed it since was to say, she didn't address it directly, but she kind of said, yeah, young women can find themselves in slightly difficult situations when they're on the set with famous men. So he is known to be a bit of a dick. But what is fascinating to me about this is the fact that Dominic West has royal connections, which he does. He's mates with Prince Harry. His wife is mates with Prince Charles. Just feeds into my theory that by this season of The Crown, season 5, the royals who are still alive and kicking and having their lives depicted in it are actually quite happy about it. Because I think I've only watched one of season 5 so far. And I didn't mind the fact that Dominic West was hot. I think it adds a bit of a different kind of vibe to Prince Charles's story, because having read the Palace Papers, that Tina Brown book, it's clear that, I mean, obviously he's not hot in any conventional sense. And in the last 2 seasons, he's been played as a real wet blanket by Josh O'Connor. But he has always been a bit of a philanderer, even with Camilla. He's never been very faithful. He's the kind of guy who has an aide who follows him around with the perfectly mixed martini. You know what I mean? Like, he is charisma, power, that stuff. So I quite like the edge that a hot guy playing him brings to it. But my theory is that he approves of this, and that Harry also, since he has a multi-million-dollar deal with Netflix, kind of approves of it too.
That Charles approves of Dominic West portraying him.
Well, no, approves of The Crown in general. Like,
Right.
I think there's been a real push recently to say it has to be branded as fiction, and Netflix have branded it as fiction, because it's so insulting to the real people. But I actually think that a lot of the real people who are still around are kind of complicit in it.
So I disagree with you about most of what you just said. I think that Dominic West is not just too handsome to play Charles, but he's too alpha. He's got like a Russell Crowe energy about him, which is like he's hyper masculine, hyper confident, huge presence when he walks in the room or on the screen, and that's just not Charles. And the reason I disagree with you about, and it's very distracting because it reads very differently if someone like that is having an affair, as opposed to someone that you describe as you know, the Dominic West real person is having an affair. And this talks a lot about his relationship with Camilla, who I have to say their relationship comes across really well. She comes across better than anyone in the whole show because she's very down to earth, very no nonsense. She's always got a drink and a ciggy in her hand, no makeup. She's wearing wellies in most shots. It's like, it's very endearing. And Diana is just so brittle, and it doesn't, I don't know. It's not, and the reason I don't think he's complicit in it is because part of it is it's a very sympathetic look at his relationship with Camilla, but it also has this whole thing which John Major's come out and said is as categorically untrue. Oh, John Major's also too hot as well.
He's way too hot.
He's played by Johnny Lee Miller, the guy from Trainspotting.
No idea
anyway,
who any of those people are.
So John Major was the Prime Minister after I don't know, someone
After Margaret Thatcher. He was the Conservative Prime Minister after Margaret Thatcher, and he was categorically not hot.
No, he had like a John Howard kind of vibe, but in this he's got like a Johnny Lee Miller, who's a sort of a much hotter young actor. But my point is that he's come out and said this is really not true, because there's this whole storyline about Charles trying to convince John Major to get rid of the Queen and install Charles, like pressure the Queen to abdicate and install Charles, because Charles is basically twiddling his thumbs and he's heading towards 70. So that does not make Charles look very good.
Holly, I like your theory because it's chaotic and I love goss, but I don't see how it could be legit. I just don't see how the royals could want to or be seen to endorse the crown in any way. What if it's that Dominic is just a skeezy dude who chose money and career over his friendship with Charles, and maybe Charles is really mad at him? Even if he portrays the character well, it's not good for the royal family to have all of this stuff dredged up again
it's
about
not good
Diana.
to have Tampon Gate in the headlines. It's
Exactly.
Not, Hol.
Then
There's no
why?
way.
Then why does Prince Harry have a multi-million-dollar deal with Netflix?
Not a fan of the royal family. Did you miss that meeting?
But this is what I mean, is I think, like Prince Harry has said before, that he doesn't mind the crown. He says it's fiction, but I'm much less offended by it than I am by tabloid news stories. That's what he said. And
Okay,
I think
so-
that's how the royal family in general feel about this show. So I kind of feel like, I don't mean that I think that Charles loves it or anything, but I think that by now, with all the hoo-ha about this show, if the royal family were absolutely furious about it, and by that I mean the ones who are still around, it probably wouldn't still be around. That's
the
what
reason
I think.
I don't agree, and the reason that I think that Harry likes it is because Diana's arc may as well be Meghan's. I mean, apart from the philandering husband, everything she says about being an outsider, not being accepted, her doing the Oprah interview is exactly parallel to Diana doing the Panorama interview, and nobody knew, and the things that she said and the way the palace reacted. There's so much that's, similar. But no, I think that Peter Morgan's been very outspoken about the fact that it's an independent thing. Netflix doesn't care what the royal family think. Peter Morgan doesn't care what the royal family think.
I think they're all, they are of the same ilk. The people who created that show and the people who it's about, that's why it's so good. And that's why I don't think they're really that upset about it.
I just have to read you his Dominic West's full name, just because I know Holly will love it hard. Dominic Gerard Francis Eagleton West.
Oh my God, exactly. Blah.
And do you know, fun fact, Dominic West's actual son plays William in this season.
Nepotism all over these bloody Eton graduates.
Yes. Perfect for the royal family.